so what I'm focusing on is just some practical ways to tackle the housing crisis. It's not a complete solution, but it's just some practical ways from my particular experience. Oh. Just to say that I'm a planner, I'm a member of the Irish Human Rights and Equality Commission, I'm a member of Impact, and Impact and IREC and ICTU, the Congress of Trade Unions, are campaigning on the issue of homelessness and the supply of housing. So just to reiterate that my focus is on practical, achievable changes that can be implemented in the immediate term or the short term. And I think one of the critical issues when you're thinking about practical solutions is to keep it simple. And also, very importantly, there's no big bang solution, I would suggest, that there are a range of solutions, incremental ones. So this is on this issue that there's no single solution and keep it simple. This is a colleague of mine who was on the Equality Authority and is now on the Human Rights and Equality Commission. And he's talking about how people try and stop change, how people try and stop incremental change. And that the second last element there is that nearly everyone seems to have a reason why doing something is not a good idea, not feasible, or not whatever, often for a whole range of different reasons. And then I think it's the brilliant one and I think it applies in a lot of situations, like the housing crisis, for example, is that when he says whatever is feasible is never seen as good enough, and whatever is seen as good enough is never feasible, with the result that nothing much happens. So I think in a sense, in terms of the housing crisis, we're in that particular situation of a kind of a logjam, that there are loads of potential solutions, but practical action is not being taken. And one of the critical ones, I think, that I would suggest is the hoarding of vacant land, vacant development land. And what we need is a really effective vacant land levy, because, for example, there are 60 hectares of vacant development land in the inner city of Dublin, and that they have been vacant through 15 years of unprecedented economic boom and of tax incentives. So there's something going wrong that we have that amount of vacant land, which, on another sense, is a huge opportunity if we can get that land going. So we do have a levy under the Urban Regeneration and Housing Act. It's only 3%, and it doesn't come into play until 2019. It's equally, you could almost say that it's designed to fail because it is extremely cumbersome to operate. There are multiple appeals processes so that the people can delay the process very significantly. So what I would suggest is that what we do is introduce a model of a vacant property tax based on the residential property tax. So the basic principle is that if you're not paying rates, or if you're not paying the residential property tax, you are automatically liable to pay a vacant property tax. You must self-declare that, and you must put your own value on the property and increase that levy up to 8% and make it payable immediately. And finally, the other one, I suppose, is that even for an initial period of 3 years or 5 years, the tax should be, or the levy should be collected by the revenue commissioners, as in RPT. Because as we all know, the revenue commissioners are more frightening than the local authority. So what that would do is that would, there's the whole issue of economics, of behavioural economics, and what we must do is disincentivize people to invest in development land as a speculative ploy or as their pension fund. It's not for that. Development land in cities is for people to provide employment for people to live, and for people to recreate. And that's the National Economic and Social Council, which is the government, advises the government, is based in the Taoiseach's office, and it's a very dramatic statement that our land market is dysfunctional. And then they're basically saying, in a recent report, that there are effectively monopolies operating in the development land market. As they say, they cooperated rather than competed, which is anti-competitive and monopolistic. And so I would suggest that we have a Competition and Consumer Protection Commission, and they should carry out a very quick study of a particular city not the whole country, a part of Dublin, maybe Cork, maybe Galway, just a pilot study to see if what is operating in those areas. And they should also carry out a study. Are there competitive, anti-competitive practices operating in the construction industry? And again, not do the whole construction industry, which would take 10 years, but take a particular aspect of it. Like, for example, the manufacturing of concrete blocks. The state also has a huge role to play. The state, in terms of CIE, local authorities, the OPW, have huge vacant land banks. There is a register of vacant state lands that the OPW have. It's online, but it's not publicly available online. They said they would make it publicly available, and I think they should do that now. And then there's a whole range of just particular administrative reforms that we could do tomorrow. Bord Pleanála, for example, at the last housing crisis, set up a special team inside Bord Pleanála that worked solely on large housing appeals, and they were able to expedite them, not reducing planning standards or whatever, but just ensure that they came out in the minimum possible time. Another area, I think, that there are, again, going back to the point, there's no big bang solution. There are a whole series of incremental solutions. Currently, vacant commercial premises in Cork and Dublin pay 50% of rates. And I would suggest that isn't enough of a disincentive to get people to use ground floor for commercial or use the upper floors for residential. And as we know, there's quite a significant amount of vacancy in upper floors, especially in Dublin and in Cork. And so I would suggest that the rate, like allow it for a year, 50% is a reasonable time to let it, but then it should go back up to 100% if the upper floors are not let. And that would encourage people, maybe they're vacant office upstairs, but it would encourage people to convert them to residential use that they may be able to let quicker. And the other area, I suppose, that people, I'm not an economist, but people say that there's a whole lack of information. It's a dysfunctional market, the land market, in the sense of there's not proper information available. And I think that is a whole area that we could move on fairly quickly, so that there should be public information available on who owns what and where, and data on what development sites have been sold for, similar to the residential property price register. And so just to conclude, I think there are a whole range of solutions to the housing crisis, but what is not a solution is to reduce housing quality. If we start, and we have started, thinking that we're going to sort out the housing crisis by reducing housing quality, we're on the wrong road, we're in a cul-de-sac. Thanks very much. Thank you.